Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio vegan to radio vegan.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The gentleman will suspend.
For what reason, Madam Speaker?
The gentleman is in breach of quorum.
Cite the rule, Madam Speaker.
Rule 17 of the House
There's
that
no rule that
prohibits
says I
Rule
can't play
17.
sounds.
The gentleman will suspend.
Why are you trying to prevent the American people
Rule
from listening to what it
17
sounds
of
like
the
in a
House
detention
prohibits
facility?
the use
These are
of that
babies and
device.
kids in a detention facility. Why do you not let the American people hear what they are saying?
The gentleman will suspend
There is
the
no
use
rule in the
of the
House that
device.
says I cannot play sounds from a detention facility.
The gentleman will suspend the use of the device. It is in violation of Rule 17.
Read the rule. It does not say I cannot play sounds from a detention facility. Why are we
The
hiding
Rule
this from the American
17
people?
prohibits the use of an electronic device to make sounds in the chamber.
To make sounds.
The
Why
gentleman,
Why are we hiding it from
the
the American
gentleman
people?
will suspend.
Why are we hiding it from the
The
American
gentleman will suspend. Per Rule 17 of the House.
people? We have 2,300 babies and kids.
The gentleman will suspend. Per Rule 17 of the House that prohibits the use of a device to make sounds in the chamber.
To make sound.
We have 2,300 babies and kids in detention facilities were ripped away from their parents. I think the American people need to hear this.
You go, Ted Lieu. You go. Should be very proud of yourselves if you live in Ted Lieu's district in California. He's awesome. We are doing this. We are literally doing this, and it's working. Everybody is commenting upon how the president now wants to change the narrative to say that haggard mothers from Honduras are criminals. Good luck with that. He had a little dog and pony show today where he dragged people who, unfortunately were victims of crime to the podium to say that all these haggard mothers from Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, they're all criminals. They're all, and nobody's buying it. You know, there was a Gallup poll today, and this is what the Republicans know. Okay, this is what they know. They know the same thing that I now know, that you will now know. And that is that 75%, that's a huge number, 75% of Americans support immigration. Yeah, we do. Because we get it. We understand it. We know we need the labor. We know that we have an unemployment rate of 3.8%, which is, full employment. Okay. And we know that we have 5 million open jobs. And we know that there are jobs that are open that we won't do. And people understand that when immigrant labor comes in, it's because we need them. We need them. That is America. That is how America grew. That is how America grows. That is what adds to GDP. It also adds to the bottom line. Immigrants, illegal and not illegal. And not that a human being could be illegal, but people here without documentation, as well as people who are here with documentation, all pay taxes. Isn't that something? Yeah, they all pay taxes. And we all know that crime is lower in communities with more immigrants. Crime is lower in communities that have more immigrants than communities that don't. Everybody knows that. I don't care how many, how he tries to change the narrative and start again with they're all criminals. It isn't going to work because 75% of the American people are very hip to what is going on, and they are appalled, and they are grossed, and they are fighting back. And, the journalists have done an amazing job. The Congress has done an amazing job. The people in this audience have done an amazing job. People across America are doing an amazing job of standing up to a barbaric, chaotic, evil, cruel, Nazi-like president. Oh, yeah, I said it. And so does everybody else. Everybody, from Dianne Feinstein. I never thought I'd see the day where a sitting senator, okay, who is up for re-election, says this is like Nazi Germany. Says it. Actually gives voice to it. I remember when we were back in New York, okay, and I worked for the other people. That was a very sore point for me working there. So I don't like to bring it up all that much. But I do remember that Bush and his torture chambers, the Abu Ghraib torture and the, stacking people naked in pyramids and writing rapist on them and putting hoods on their head and, connecting electrodes to various body parts and all that I saw in photographs, by the way. Yeah, in photographic evidence, I said this is like, the gulags of Russia. This is like the camps of Nazi Germany. This is torture. This is unbelievable, right? And I got yelled at by the liberals for using, you cannot say Nazi. You can't compare the president of the United States to Hitler. Can't say Hitler, can't compare. Well, everybody's doing it now. I mean, all bets were, and if we would have had, not we, but if they who had the money to run something like a liberal network would have had the spine of a ferret, they would have known that was the beginning of the coarsening of a culture that is now, the speed of our moral descent under this man. Yeah, it started escalating under George W. There's no question, spying on his own people. We had like Stasi police officers. We had police brutality going through the roof. We had torture. We had torture chambers, black site prisons, all that. But and then it stopped for 8 years. And yes, Obama deported about 1 million people, but never separated, families. They did actually screw up with unaccompanied minors. And some of those kids, and they've apologized for it. If you don't believe me, read a newspaper today because Jay Johnson has an op-ed, about, the mistakes that the Obama administration made, but how it was not, it was bad, that they had to make tough choices about unaccompanied minors and they screwed up. And some kids actually ended up being slaves for factory farmers, like Americans in Ohio who needed slave labor. And they admit that there were a lot of mistakes, but they had never seen anything like this. Nobody ever has. And so if you don't believe me, you can read Jay Johnson today in the newspaper and his op-ed, and you can see that, they outline where their mistakes were. But this is something of a different nature. This is a remarkable plunge into barbarism. This is like the coarsening of the culture in the most speedy, dedicated way, creating Nazism, invoking it, creating it, encouraging it. I've never seen anything like this. Most people in this country, got wind of it during the Bush years, but they never saw anything like this. And so you do have people like Ted Lieu standing on the floor, playing the audio tape of the children crying. You do have people like Dianne Feinstein who, was so betrayed. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember when Dianne Feinstein and, Trump had a meeting? They were all at that conference table, and Trump was saying, yeah, we could do a clean DACA bill. No, we just want to solve it. Remember that?
And I don't know how you would feel about this, but I'd like to ask the question, what about a clean DACA bill now, and with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure like we did back, I remember when Kennedy was here, and it was really a major effort. And it was a great disappointment that it went nowhere.
I have no problem. I think that's basically what Dick is saying. We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Would you be agreeable to that?
Yeah, I would like to do that. Go ahead. I think a lot of people would like to see that, but I think we have to do DACA first.
Mr. President, you need to be clear, though. I think what Senator Feinstein's asking here, when we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later. You have to have security, as the Secretary would tell you.
But I think that's what she's saying.
I think she's saying something different.
No, that was Kevin McCarthy going, no. And the president, is sitting there going, yeah, we should do a clean DACA bill. And then phase 2 would be comprehensive immigration reform. I just want you to know that yesterday, as I told you in real time, the Goodlatte bill, which, people have been writing me. I've never gotten this much email, but people are writing me like crazy. I'm trying to answer as fast as I can, as you know. But they're saying, well, why don't they just, punish the employers who employ these people who are here without document? Well, that we have a system for that. It's called E-Verify. And you know what's crazy is business doesn't want E-Verify because they like the slave labor. They like having immigrant labor. So does Trump, by the way. He paid people from Poland in vodka, right? So the Goodlatte bill, it didn't pass yesterday. 41 Republicans voted against it, and that prevented a majority, because they have the majority. They have 235, right, Republicans. You need 218, and they only got 191 votes, right? Because 41 Republicans said no. And part of what happened was Goodlatte took out, at the request of lobbyists for big corporations, E-Verify. That's who they're serving by doing it. So that failed yesterday. And then there was supposed to be a vote today on comprehensive immigration reform that did address DACA into the way idiot boy Kevin McCarthy, no, we can't do DACA by itself. We got to, So there was a moderate, it's really the extreme right versus the far right. And so Ryan is the far right, and the extreme right was Goodlatte, and that failed. But they actually can't take the vote today. Know why? Know why, everybody? They don't have the votes. They don't have the votes. And you know why they don't have the votes? Because idiot President boy who sat there at that meeting going, yeah, we should do a clean DACA bill, then we could do phase 2, and all friendly and stuff. Yeah, he's tweeted out yesterday that, don't even try House of Representatives. Don't even try. And the House of Representatives was in the middle of voting for the Goodlatte bill. And, Trump wouldn't say, does he support the extreme right bill or does he support the far right bill? And by the way, both bills were drafted without any Democrats at all being involved. So how do they vote for something they haven't read? It can't happen, right? But it doesn't matter because they have 235. They could pass it with 218. But they're not even going to vote today because they don't have 218. They're not going to vote at all. And that's because Trump tweeted today, he sandbagged them today and said to them, don't waste your time. Wait till after the election. Don't waste your time. Don't even bother to vote. And the Republicans were like, but you came up here on Tuesday and, yeah, you talked about yourself and trashed Mark Sanford, but at least you showed up. And now Thursday you tweet, they'll just veto, we won't get 60 votes in the Senate, so, stop doing it. And then today he said, oh, don't even waste your time. The GOP said he is undermining us.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you. And that child may be separated from you as required by law. If you don't want your child to be separated, then don't bring them across the border illegally. It's not our fault. Our policies that can result in short-term separation of families is not unusual or unjustified, and it's really a very short period of time. Having children does not give you immunity from arrest and prosecution. Bringing children with you doesn't guarantee you won't get prosecuted.
That was then. This is now.
the media narrative out there has been that the Trump administration caving to pressure, that these optics have not been good for the administration. What's the response to that?
Well, it hasn't been good. And the American people don't like the idea that we're separating families. We never really intended to do that. What we intended to do was to make sure that adults who bring children into the country are charged with the crime they've committed, instead of giving that special group of adults immunity from prosecution, which is what, in effect, we were doing.
If you come into this country, we will separate from your children and we will prosecute you. I mean, he said it over and over again. Kelly was the one who said it was a deterrent. We'll take good care of the children. We'll put them in foster care or whatever. Christian Nielsen denied that they were even doing it. This is a very sick administration. And, like I said yesterday, the president is an arsonist. He likes to set fire to things like North Korea. Little rocket man, fire and fury will blow you up. You won't even, like the world, you'll see violence in North Korea like the world has never known. Ratcheting up, creating, like hysteria and fear in Guam, for God's sake, and all over the, oh my God, is he crazy enough to do it? And then, having a meaningless, pointless dog and pony show over in, where did they go? Singapore? Where, Mattis said yesterday, nothing's changed in North Korea. They've taken no steps. They've done nothing. And Trump's going, okay, everybody, you could, I rescued you from a nuclear holocaust. I mean, this is what he does. He sets fire to things. Then he, inserts himself into the catastrophe on the side of being a hero to put out the fire. He does this all the time, but he's not doing anything. He's not accomplishing anything except dividing this country, except allowing for racist, xenophobes, alt-right, white supremacist, Nazi, fascist to, flourish in this country. And I'm telling you, you think, certain music coarsens the culture, or certain video games coarsen the culture. Yeah, you know what coarsens the culture? Freaking Nazism. Fascism. That's what coarsens the culture. Language like this president uses about infestation. You say now, I'm starting to hear my words repeated. I'm very happy about that, okay? I really am. I'm very, very happy. I've been reading articles where they've been putting in quotes, Cult 45, thanks a lot, because they know that that's something that was said, and it was said by me, and I hashtag that every time I tweet. But honest to God, man, I'm so happy that people are saying exactly what I'm saying, that they are repeating my words verbatim. I heard yesterday from a conservative pundit, really, and I was thrilled. Trump, literally, she said, Trump is an arsonist who then takes the fire hose from the fireman and declares himself a hero. Okay? And I was so happy to hear it, because this is what it takes to counter propaganda, is everybody getting on the same page, seeing the propaganda, calling it out for propaganda, making lucid, examples of what he's doing so everybody can understand what he's doing. The why, it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter. Either he's, cruel and a sadist, or he's a fascist, or he's Hitler, or he thinks it helps him win elections. I don't really care. This, again, I don't give a damn. I couldn't give a good damn about what the people that support him want. And you know what? Donnie Deutsch, who is, he's not a liberal. He was saying today, if you vote for Trump, if you endorse this, if you're tweeting about this, if you're still hashtagging MAGA or whatever you're doing, this is on you now. This is on you. You are now part of the Nazis, okay?
It is now the time that he has gone too far. Question mark. Go.
I want to attach what you just said to the question that Joe asked John about politicizing, and I could put an exclamation mark about everything you said, and it was particularly reprehensible when Ivanka said it looks a certain way. What has to happen now, this can no longer be about who Trump is. It has to be about who we are. If we are working towards November, we can no longer say Trump's the bad guy. If you vote for Trump, you're the bad guy. If you vote for Trump, you are ripping children from parents' arms. The mistake that we've made in the past is look at that bad guy over there, look at that bad guy.
Right.
What the Democrats have to do is make the next election a referendum on not who Trump is, but who you are. And that's the big difference. You can no longer now as a voter, because it's now not about taxes, it's not even about some abstract term of immigration or nationalism. If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis, going, you here, you here. And I think we now have to flip it, and it's a given, the evilness of Donald Trump. But if you vote, you can no longer separate yourself. You can't say, well, he's okay, but. And I think that gymnastics and I think that jujitsu has to happen.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Who are you? What do you stand for? We know what we stand for, and we know we can't wait to vote, and we can't wait to have a Congress that actually can do things, that can actually, figure their way out of a paper bag, that isn't coarsening our culture. We've got a president who's undermining his own party. You had the Republican from Pennsylvania. His name's Ryan Costello. He was quoted in the newspaper today. Okay, he was he said about this comprehensive immigration reform effort. He said Trump undermined it. There are a number of people on the fence that are looking for him to lean in and say, please support this bill. And instead, he questioned strategically why we should even put the bill on the floor. This is a moderate Republican from Pennsylvania who is not seeking re-election, and so therefore he feels free to talk. And he said, and for the members that were squeamish on that bill, that's not a reason to vote for it when a president, doesn't support it. He said that's a reason to vote against it. And another, Jack Kingston, who, is a crazy, he's like best friends with Bill Maher for some strange reason. But Kingston, is now a pundit, and he's a surrogate for the Trump administration. He said he went up to Capitol Hill, and he said virtually all sides of the Republican conference expressed wariness with Trump's approach on the policy and toward lawmakers in general. He said, quote, I spent some time on the Hill today and yesterday, and members are very frustrated. He's a surrogate for Trump. He said, I think they will get there, but right now they're kind of ticked off because they feel sandbagged with this family separation policy. Trump never told them he was going to do this. He just did it. He didn't think it through. He created this horrible chaos. He has subjected thousands and thousands and thousands of children and haggard mothers and, to torture, essentially. They have no plan for reuniting these people. By the way, I got to tell you, the guy who runs the Office for Refugee Resettlement, you should learn his name. His name is I think it's Lloyd Floyd, or it's really, look him up. ORR. This man was appointed by Donald Trump. You know what his street cred is? You know what he's good? He has no experience in logistics. He has no experience with refugees. He has no experience with resettlement. He has no experience with anything that would, put him in that would qualify him to be in the Office of Refugee Resettlement. He's an anti-abortion activist. Yeah. So he's the one that spent all his time. You remember there was a girl who was an immigrant, and she wanted an abortion, and he sued, that to try and stop her from being able to pay for her own abortion. I don't know. He thought he lorded over her in some weird way because she was a refugee, and that he could tell her what she could do with her body because she was here as a refugee. Yeah, he lost that case because the Constitution applies to all people in the United States, whether they're refugees or they're natives or they're visiting, or it just doesn't matter. But that's what he spent his time doing all these many months, is trying to keep this girl pregnant, and he failed to do it. And so now all of a sudden the president dumps this. He has nothing in place. The alien number. The kids are showing up with nothing, with no number, with no identification, with no, GPS that connects to their nothing. This guy is a complete. They're all like inept, And that's why they got these jobs. Like Betsy DeVos, her record on education is the pissest, poorest. She's never taught a class in her life. Didn't even go to public school. She just, she's just a rich woman who, has a vision for making for-profit education profitable for her freaking family that profited off of, pyramid schemes. I mean, this is sick. And her brother is a defense contractor training the Chinese military to defend themselves against an American invasion. I mean, these are sick people. And the sicker they are, the more Trump likes them. This is very twisted stuff, and everybody gets it now. And I'm just so grateful. This is a former Bush administration advisor. His name's Peter Wenner. He was on the TV last night, and he was saying, it's time for you to wake up and smell the fascism.
This is the thread that goes through. Donald Trump is inconsistent. He flip-flops. He's volatile. But there is a malicious thread that runs through his presidency and his rhetoric. And it comes back to race and to ethnicity. That's the new culture war.
Yes.
Years ago, the culture war was defined by issues having to do with abortion, gay rights, and so forth. That's not the case now. And that has to do with race and ethnicity. And, remember, race is the original sin in American life.
Right.
And it has been the most consistently besetting sin. And Trump keeps coming back to it. The country has had presidents before who have been polarizing. That happens. What we've never had before is somebody who is so intentionally divisive and so intentionally malicious. That is, he goes out of his, he does it all the time, and he does it with an intention to divide on these kind of fault lines of American society. And so it's not a surprise that America is fracturing.
No, because he's a sadist. Okay? He is a cruel barbarian. He's a sadist, this man. He's incompetent and malevolent, and those two things combined always produce a bad result. But on top of it, he's barbaric, he's a sadist, and he loves authoritarian government. He loves Duterte. He loves Vlad. He loves Xi, because Xi is going to be president for life in an autocratic dictatorship known as China. I mean, he's a sick man. And this is what happens when you have a fascist, a sick man, a sadist, somebody who is willing to separate thousands of children from their parents based on lies about criminality of these children, criminality of these parents, criminality. I mean, he's a sick man. When you have the Freedom Caucus, okay, like Raul Labrador from Idaho, for God's sake, He says, when Trump went up to Capitol Hill on Tuesday of this week, Trump went to Capitol Hill, and all he did was, he was supposed to be going there to unify Republicans around a comprehensive immigration bill, a piece of legislation. And instead, Raul Labrador and others who were in that meeting, Mark Sanford also, like I said, the moderate Republicans, they said that during that meeting, the president did nothing but talk about himself. He talked about his electoral victory yet again. He talked about how his policy of, dividing the country this way was useful, how basically cruelty was not a side effect of his chaotic policy, but it was a feature, which is what Stephen Miller said. It's a feature of cruelty, that it was unifying the base. Raul Labrador said that he attacked Mark Sanford, who is also a member of the Freedom Caucus. I told you, Mark Sanford's like one of the most conservative members. He's part of the Freedom Crackers, okay? He's one of those. And Labrador said, and this is, the guy from Idaho, he said there was absolutely no applause when he trashed, Sanford. He said because the president needs to understand that actually lost him votes during that meeting, because the reason he was there was to emphasize that he had our backs, and a different message was sent. The president went and told the press that when he trashed Mark Sanford, that Republicans, quote, applauded and laughed loudly when I mentioned my experience with Mark Sanford. The other conservatives in that meeting said, No, people groaned. They were upset. He lost himself a bunch of votes. He said, our actions and our words have consequences. And if someone goes before a body and says things that aren't true, one could argue that that body cannot trust the person seeking what they are seeking. Lobbyists. Republican lobbyists are quoted in this piece and said most of these guys are clocking the time clock and doing what they have to get reelected. They're professional politicians. Most of them aren't looking to get fired.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Do you interpret the effort for an immigration bill to be dead after the president said Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after the election? Democrats are playing games. They have no intention of doing anything to solve this decades-old problem. We can pass great legislation after the red wave of the election. Where does that leave you?
Game over.
Game over.
It takes the wind out of the sails in what might have been a fairly productive weekend in terms of looking for a compromise. I don't know how it happens, because if you look at how contentious this issue is, how much emotion there is, without the president being out front, without the president having legislators' backs, there's no way they're going to take the risk that would be inherent in a major reform bill.
So there you have it, everybody. It's dead. Immigration reform is dead because the president doesn't have the backs of his own party. And they are just trying to hang on to their seats. They are not going to take any of the fallout from doing a comprehensive immigration reform bill because the president, with one tweet, can say, don't vote for this guy. I don't like him. And they'll be out after they take a hard vote. So they're not going to take a hard vote because they're spineless too, okay? They're weasels. These people never do the right thing. They do the thing that's popular or the thing that they see in polling that's selling. And if it's being a Nazi, they'll be a Nazi. But if they have a Nazi president and he's not popular and they do a Nazi thing and he doesn't even have their back as they're doing the Nazi thing, they're just going to lay low and they're going to try and slide under the bar of the election. So, I mean, this man just constantly makes chaotic decisions. He never thinks them through. He doesn't have linear thinking or strategic thinking. He doesn't. All he likes is to be seen as some sort of a hero. So he creates these chaotic moments, and then he says, "I'm going to solve the problem. Only I can do it." And he loses the support of his own party, and then nothing So I just want you to know that there's so much confusion and so much disarray with regard to these children and these parents and what to do about it, that the Customs and Border Patrol made a quiet decision. And in public, they're saying one thing, but in private, in their emails, which were gotten by CNN got a whole bunch of emails from the Customs and Border Protection, authorities there who are telling the underlings what they should be doing. And so they got a whole bunch of emails saying that they've decided they're not going to refer the adults who are caught crossing the border illegally. If they arrive with children, they are not going to refer them for criminal prosecution. First of all, it's a misdemeanor, and it's a petty misdemeanor. Just think back to a day. If you live in a border place, if you have any experience in border communities across America, you know that the border was open and people would go back and forth, and we'd have seasonal workers that would come, and then they would go home. They'd save their money as they were working, and then they would go home after the season was over, and then they would come back in, right? We had all this. We had stores. We had people, going to restaurants on the American side, then going home to their house in Mexico, and those towns prospered. Those towns did just fine. Then all of a sudden, they're brown, and all this racism and hatred, and oh my God, and they're criminals, and they're this and they're that. And in the 80s, we gave amnesty because we screwed up that place so freaking hard that the people in the military who were fighting either with us or against us fled. And they fled to the United States, just like our 19-year-old fled to Canada. And we never allowed them to vote, and we never allowed them to assimilate, and we never gave them driver's license. And, what did you expect was going to happen to them? They remained very disenfranchised, very poor, and very frustrated. And some of them had no family, and they formed gangs. They were just stoners back then, but... so anyway, I digress. But the Customs and Border Protection put a hold on referring adults caught for a misdemeanor violation for criminal prosecution. They suspended the referrals. They're not going to do it. And they're at odds with their own damn self. Trump says it's still going on. Publicly, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, say they're still referring people, but the email traffic that went back and forth on Wednesday and Thursday that CNN got from Customs and Border Protection shows that they've told the field offices to suspend referring any parents who cross the border illegally with their children for prosecution of misdemeanor illegal entry charges, which neuters the zero tolerance policy. And of course, in public, they're saying, oh no, we're still doing it. There's nothing, there's nothing that has changed. So nobody knows what's going on. Congress doesn't know what's going on. The field offices don't know what's going on. The prosecutors don't know what's going on. The judges don't know what's going on. The lawyers don't know what's going on. I mean, this is insane what he's done. This is bizarre and insane and hideous and ugly and Nazi, okay? It is. So here's another Republican.
The racism that is inherent in everything that Donald Trump does when he talks about Mexico. And like you said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, these people, it reminds me of the line in Gatsby about the foul dust.
Yeah.
That floating around in his dreams. Well, let's show this. Let's show this clip from Mexico really quickly, Gene, and then we'll talk on the other side of it. I don't understand who wants to be associated with this for the rest of their lives, because Donald Trump's going to leave. He's going to have his billions of dollars, and he doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks about him. He's just going to destroy everybody around him. Let's look at this clip.
Mexico, by the way, is doing nothing for us. Nothing. They have the strongest immigration laws. They can do whatever they want. They can keep people out of Mexico. They have a 2,000-mile journey up Mexico. They walk through Mexico like it's walking through Central Park. It's ridiculous. They encourage people, frankly, to walk through Mexico and go into the United States because they're drug traffickers, they're human traffickers, they're coyotes. I mean, we're getting some real beauties. Mexico is doing nothing for us except taking our money and sending us drugs. If we took zero tolerance away, you would be overrun you'd have millions of people pouring through our border. If you took zero tolerance away, everybody would come right now. They'd be getting their little belongings, unfortunately, and they would be heading up. You would have a run on this country the likes of which nobody's ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gene, so, I mean, let's dig through this. First of all, he talks about Mexicans as being rapists when he starts a campaign. He calls Hispanics breeders this year. He's now talking about infested. And yes, I'd say, we shouldn't use Hitler references and Nazi references and fascist references or Marxist references. But when you start talking about people coming in and infesting a society, infesting a culture, that really actually is straight out of Adolf Hitler's playbook. So you can be offended if you want, but that's out of Hitler's playbook.
Just saying. Talking about people as animals. talking about people as being vermin or infesting or invaders or, painting an entire ethnicity as nothing but criminals or what. I mean, this is this is right out of Hitler. This is right out of the separating of kids is right out of slavery. This is anti-Semitic language. This is just fascist language. It's very familiar to a lot of us. It's very familiar, and that's what's so disturbing about it. Is it sounds all too familiar, and it's barbaric, and it's cruel, and it's cruel on purpose. The reason he does it is to be cruel, to gather all the sadists in one place. He's a sick man, and you talk about coarsening a culture. This is what does it faster than anything is hatred. You got an entire country ate up with hatred. You're not going to get decency, respect. You're not going to have, cooperation or, good ideas. It just can't happen. Lloyd in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Lloyd.
Your show. You do great work as always. The thing that got me yesterday was, I check out Weather Nation, the app on the Weather Channel, and not only was McAllen, Texas, full of 1 to 3 feet of water, but if you looked at the National Visible Satellite weather map on Weather Nation between 10 and 11 Pacific Daylight Time, there was an absolute question mark going from the Great Lakes down where the dot was a huge cluster.
Why are you giving me a weather report?
Because it was a question mark. It was literally a question mark from the top of the country to McAllen, Texas, being the dot. And things like that don't happen that often when you're looking at weather stuff. But the other thing is that no one's bringing up the fact that they're blowing off habeas corpus.
Yeah, if you're here, you're protected under the Constitution. You're entitled to due process. You're entitled to constitutional rights of, liberty. You are. I mean, for a misdemeanor crime, nobody should be criminally prosecuted because it's not a crime. It's not a federal criminal thing. It's a petty misdemeanor. But I don't know why I got the weather report. You wasted my time. Charlotte in Sun City, Arizona.
This is me. Hi, Randy. I'm a first-time caller.
Hi.
I like watching your show.
Thank you.
My question is, Trump has got everyone looking at the chaos that he's created with the children and families at the border, while Congress has been passing bills that have cut something like $23 million out of Medicare.
Yeah,
and,
that's the tax bill.
Yes, but and then also he's made it so that you have that you can go across state lines and buy that junk health care, and he's cutting food stamps by making it harder to obtain them. And but he's doing all this, it seems to me, purposely so that people will forget about all the things that he's doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, but it isn't really behind the scenes. This was in the tax bill, okay? And everybody understood that it was in the tax bill, and everybody understood that he was cutting, the individual mandate, which was going to create a 1,000% increase in your premiums, and the average tax cut that people got. Not corporations, not the wealthy who don't have to pay taxes on $20 million or whatever the crazy, 22 that they inherit now. The average tax cut that people got was $680 per year, and the average increase in healthcare premiums is $1,000. So you do the math. You tell me who came out ahead. It wasn't you. Corporations got their tax rate cut from 35 to 20 or 22, whatever it was. I mean, this is ridiculous. And it was all out in the open. This wasn't a secret, okay? Everybody knew it. But these crazy people who are motivated by their hatred, motivated by their disdain for, others who are, a part of this cult 45, they didn't care that they were going to pay. They didn't care that it was going to cost them, more to live. I mean, today they did a breakdown of the tax bill because I think it's been 6 months now since it passed. And they found out that, 100, just like we said, like most of the money went to stock buybacks by big corporations, okay? And income did not rise. It rose like maybe 1%. And ordinary people got nothing out of this tax cut. In fact, ordinary people are going to pay more for their health care. And yeah, now they're selling these skimpy plans again because they're not illegal and they don't cover anything. And you won't find that out until you go to use it, that you're not covered for jack crap under this stupid plan. I mean, and I hear them on the radio being advertised all the time. I won't advertise them, but I hear them all the time. Like when I'm driving, I hear ads for this plan will save you thousands of dollars because it covers absolutely nothing. This is what we used to have are these, well, you ought to market it under like, Trump University healthcare because it's as much a fraud as that was. He's a con man. But it didn't happen, quietly. It happened way out in the open. But there are people in this country that are so full of hate and can't think their way out of a paper bag. And were all for this tax cut, thinking that they were going to somehow get relief. And they got nothing. And corporate America got everything. Corporate America got just everything it wanted on its wish list, and ordinary people got nothing. And Democrats, our position was let's legislate for the workers. Let's legislate for wages. Let's get a minimum wage of $15, a living wage. These were our priorities. Let's fix what's broken in Obamacare. Maybe we do offer a public option and see if people want to buy into Medicare. That would be a public option, right? Or maybe we go for single payer. I doubt that it would have happened right away, but a public option, meaning you had a choice. I would have bought into Medicare in a heartbeat if I could. But oh no, instead you voted for a sadist. And he's got a war on the poor going on. There's no question. He's putting work requirements on disability payments. Oh, everyone's going to be so sorry. But like I said, they're always sorry after they vote for a guy like this. I mean, not that we've seen anything like this, but they were sorry after Bush.
Mary had a little man. The fall.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Bringing their, quote, little belongings. And, of course, Mexico taking our money, doing nothing but taking our money and sending us drugs. How does Mike Pence, how do Karen Pence, how do any of these people continue being associated with a man who is now openly bigoted against everybody who is not white and rich?
That's exactly right. Mike Pence stands there and he puts on his frown and he nods sagely at the most sort of racist, vile comments and sentiments coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States that he serves so loyally and unquestioningly. And people will remember. I certainly hope people remember. This should leave an indelible stain on Mike Pence and on his career and on the others around him. I mean, this is the most naked sort of white supremacism is all you can call it. Really, that is Donald Trump's sort of core philosophy about America, is that it is a white country, and that brown people and black people and other people of color who come here don't belong here. They don't belong in the MAGA great America that he's trying to, in his mind, recreate. It's an America that never existed, but it's the America in his head, and that's President of the United States.
That's the president of the United States. He is a white supremacist. He's a bigot. He's a sadist on top of it. He's disorganized in his thinking and in his practices. He is a guy who knows how to go bankrupt, and he's a guy who has no idea that taking a 9-month-old and putting them in a cage is wrong. Now, how do you have moral leadership on a world stage if you have a leader who believes that putting a 9-month-old in a cage is right? Or putting an anti-abortion activist to head the Office of Refugee Resettlement and then creating a crisis knowing that the guy that's in charge of these kids, his name, by the way, I looked at it, is E. Scott Lloyd. E. Scott Lloyd. He's in charge of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. This is the agency that is now charged with caring for these kids after they've been separated from their parents. He has no experience working with refugees. He has no experience in logistics. He has no experience in anything except trying to prevent a pregnant migrant from getting an abortion. It's what he spent all these months doing. Nothing in his background indicates that he has any ability to handle complex humanitarian crises or challenges or logistical. That's why it's so chaotic, because everyone that Trump has put in there, he knows all the best people. They're all compromised people. They're all ideologues. They're people who either are trying to line their pockets by, with government service, like Tom Price, who had to leave, or Betsy DeVos, who's still there, or, Pruitt. I mean, they're all dirty. Every single one of them is a filthy, dirty scoundrel or worse. And this man is an ideologue. He's an anti-abortion activist, and he has no credentials to be in charge of all these children. I mean, this is a sick thing. Now, remember, but this is your president. Remember, he created a crisis at airports with the Muslim ban, okay? He created, he's been ignoring 4,000 dead people in Puerto Rico, and it's now hurricane season again here. And today they're minting some congratulatory coin to congratulate themselves on how they handled Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. He's a very sick man. Cavalierly, he separated thousands of babies and toddlers and young, elementary age kids from their parents with no process in place to reunite them. He says Nazis, some of them are fine people. This is a bigoted, I don't know, they call him a bigot because they're polite. He's a racist fuck. And it's now on you people who support him. It's now on you. You continue to support him, then we get to call you a racist Nazi. End of story. And maybe you're proud that you're a racist Nazi, but we don't want you here. We don't want you here. Go someplace where they like Nazis. You know what I mean? Just find a place on this planet. You're going to be hard pressed to do it, but find a place to emigrate to that actually embraces this, because it ain't here. 75% of Americans support immigration, and all that this did, this whole, and it's still going on. And let's not pretend that we have a way of reuniting these families. Again, I'm not clear if Border Patrol is still referring these people for prosecution in criminal courts for a misdemeanor, petty misdemeanor. But it looks like from their emails they're not, but from their public statements they say they are. The Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, says, yeah, we are. Nobody even knows what's going on. Congress doesn't know what's going on. They won't let Congress members, they won't let senators or House members into these facilities. There are 81 companies that are 81 companies are splitting. Here's a number for you. $1.5 billion to put babies in cages. 81 companies are splitting $1.5 billion. And there's no oversight. You can't get in there. Okay, congressmen can't get in there. Senators can't get in there. Now, why do you think they don't want anybody in there? Because they're doing such a great job? No, yesterday's whole show was to show you that these companies that have had babies die in their care, that are injecting the children to keep them placid with, 10 different, a cocktail of 10 different drugs, including anti-Parkinson's medication, including anti-seizure medication, including, Thorazine. I mean, Klonopin. To keep them, quiet and to keep them sleeping and this is sick stuff. They won't let anybody in there. And by the way, they keep getting their grants renewed. Over and over, they keep getting these grants renewed. This is sick. Very sick. And we only have limited, space. And so now we're going to farm them out to military bases where civilians can't get on the base, right? This is ridiculous. The government is being ridiculous. And that's all you need to say is, you're being ridiculous. Irina Lantana.
Randi.
Yes.
The reason why I do care so deeply is this is our country.
Yep.
And what is being done right now in our country is, the list. You know the list.
I know the list.
He's deranged, everything else. And this is why my phone calls today, every day, I am really getting tired of making all these phone calls, but I realize that doing nothing is not an option.
Yep.
So I persist. But my phone calls today, I have been asking, and one good thing that I can tell you, cannot get through to Mr. Ryan's office and any one of his, whether it's, Kenosha and whatever the hell places up there in Wisconsin.
Janesville,
yes. You cannot get through. The lines are either ringing busy or you get this message that your call cannot be, taken at this moment. I'm hoping that everybody is calling just like I am. But the reason why I'm calling now is because I am asking we have a constitution of this country, and it contains a 25th Amendment to protect this country and all the people in it, regardless of how they got here. This man has no business being in the Oval Office. All he knows how to do is destroy. And watching him today, this coward, behind grieving families.
Oh, I saw that.
I know a lot about grief. I have been through an awful lot of loss, which I'm not going to get into. But I know all the stages of denial and depression and anger. And right now, I'm teetering between anger and just plain, got to do something, got to fix this. And what I am trying to do is to plant the seed. I don't know, because I don't think I should be having to do this. It is blatantly obvious to me that he is insane. And we have, like I said, the 25th Amendment saying that, this is a protection for our country, that he should not be in the presidency. What he is doing is so dangerous.
It is dangerous. You think about, the kids and, how this is a permanent scar on the rest of their days. But think about North Korea, okay? North Korea is a really easy to understand thing. He creates an emergency because he's thoughtlessly belligerent and nasty and, all that. And then after he sparks international panic, he diffuses it by arranging for a spectacle. Nothing is accomplished at all, but then he tweets out that he solved everybody's problem. Now, that is sick. There's something that's... And it's more dangerous than when he first got involved, because now North Korea is aligning itself with Russia and China.
And let us not forget about Russia, because this all goes back to prior to the election and how he and Russia found the perfect puppet in him.
Yeah.
How this is all about Putin's hatred for Obama, for Hillary, and with Trump, how they are watching our country coming apart.
Oh, yeah.
And this has got to stop. And I don't understand why. I mean, this is a constitutional crisis. Republicans need to take responsibility.
So let me stop you right there, because I just want to say this out loud to people who all say to me, when will we know that what is a constitutional crisis? I've heard that question a million times. How do we know, or what is a constitutional crisis is the question. This is it. This is it. This is what it looks like. It looks like a madman in the Oval Office literally splitting apart 9-month-old babies and 1-year-old babies and 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-old boys.
People coming here seeking political asylum. This is the United States of America, where people have the privilege, the right, the opportunity to do that. Where else on the planet? What other country is like the United States? And
well, there's a lot of countries that are very free. I mean, let's not. The reason why America is different is because America led that movement toward democracy. We took a fascist Germany and showed them the benefit of being an open, free democracy.
And the people from Central America are not going to be able to go to any other country other than the United States on foot, dragging these little children whose lives they are simply trying to save.
But that's not true either. They do go to other countries. I just want people to be very, aware. I have a very special bond with Central America, as you know, okay? Yes. I've lived there. I own a house there. I know the people. I know the culture. It's a loving, sweet family, very family, almost 100% Christian culture down there, okay? Family is first. Everything else is second, okay? And to paint these people as being evil or wrong or
and that's what he knows how to do.
But they do go to other countries. They do. They go to Panama. They go to Costa Rica. They go to Mexico. Mexico helps us in two ways. First of all, this year alone, they've turned back 150,000 people. And second, they do give visas to some special circumstance people, and they let them stay in Mexico. And then others avoid the well-traveled path. They go, because they're trying to make it here, because they think that there's the best hope is here, okay? But don't tell yourself they don't go to other countries. Of course they go to other countries.
But I'm talking about the ones that did come here.
Yes.
And the ones that are in our care right now.
Right, and they are our responsibility as long as we hold them.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Oh, I love that. We're doing that. That is a beautiful scene. You know what that was today? That was a 7-year-old boy. His name is Darwin Michael Mejia, and his mother, okay, who were reunited. His mother's name is Beata Mariana de Jesus Mejia. That's such a great name. And she had petitioned the court to reunite her with her son, who was taken a month ago before all this. And she was, her son was delivered to her last night in Phoenix, Arizona at 2:00 in the morning. He was wearing little baby brown boots and red shoelaces. He's one of the more than 2,300 kids. And the kid was just so sad. They asked her, what did you say? Well, she's saying, I love you, in 80 different ways. Okay. She's saying, te amo, tu quiero, I love you, in many, many different ways. And he said nothing. That's the sad part. He said nothing. This kid has been so traumatized by being away from his mother in a detention center for 7-year-olds for an entire month. Now, for people who, I had a very brilliant caller at the beginning of the week who said, where are the attorneys general? Where are they? Well, I told you there was a case that was being brought by the ACLU in San Diego, and the ACLU has asked a federal judge to impose a nationwide injunction and to grant class action status to all these separated mothers from their children. There is a hearing today in San Diego. The U.S. District Judge, her name's Dana Sabra. Dana may be a man, I don't know. But she denied the government's request to dismiss the case. She set the hearing for today to discuss how the executive order affects everything. That case was brought by a woman from the Congo, believe it or not, who was separated from her 6-year-old daughter, and also a Brazilian woman who was separated from her 14-year-old son. This is not just Central American. The majority of people in what we've been seeing are definitely from the Northern Triangle of Central America. But the Washington State Attorney, Bob Ferguson, he said he's going to file a coalition-based lawsuit in the Western District of Washington challenging the separation policy. Lee Gellert, who's the deputy director of the ACLU Immigrants' Rights Project, this man is so amazing. I got to say, shout out to him. The Maryland Attorney General, Brian Frosch, his state is joining the coalition in the lawsuit. He said, quote, "We want to stop what's going on immediately and do everything possible to reunite the children with their families." So they are doing stuff. I mean, we're doing this. The decent people in this country, the smart people in this country, the people who are situated in positions of power, like states attorneys general, like ACLU attorneys, like these kids in need of defense, Raices, 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 which is the this man Ryan, Mr. Ryan, who has been on television all week long, who's been telling us stories of these mass trials with little girls, 4 years old, 5 years old, with their little feet dangling, not touching the floor, in their sparkly little shoes, and they're giving them their rights, in these mass rights, readings of rights to 6-year-olds and 4-year-olds. He's been doing a great job. $15 million was raised for that group this week alone. So decent people are doing amazing things in this country right now. And of course, you have the Trumps. Melania chose to wear, and you want to know something that's creepy, okay? Melania chose to wear this Zara jacket yesterday, the $39 jacket that is produced by Zara, that said on the back of it, "I really don't care, do you?" And we can discuss her fashion choices, which I'm sure, everybody knows she gives her fashion choices lots and lots and lots and lots of thought. She's a woman who cares about clothes. She's a woman who cares about accessories. She's a woman who cares about purses and jewelry and shoes and, heels and skinny jeans and all of it, okay? She probably lies awake at night saying, "Oh, I really should try this on because I'm not sure if it's going to work for tomorrow," and then gets up out of bed and goes into her closet and, where she has a full-length mirror and tries on various things that she's, assembling in her head. There's nothing wrong with that. Some women are like that. Some men are like that. Some women decorate in their heads at night. I'm one of those. I love to rearrange furniture in my mind. But that jacket that she wore yesterday, there's a couple of interesting things about it. Number one, it was 85 degrees, which I did not know. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., she did not need to wear a coat. In fact, it was almost 90 degrees in Washington. The Fells-like. The Fells-like number where, feels like, right? So here it feels like 110, okay? But it's probably 90. But there it was 85 degrees, and it felt like, 90. Why is she wearing a jacket? Okay, so her press secretary puts out a statement, says, "Don't read anything into it. There's no there." And then the president tweets out, oh, no, this was her message to the media. She was on her way to go visit one of these internment camps for children, and she chose, her fashion statement was to wear a jacket that had scrawled on the back in large white letters, "I really don't care, do you?" Now, it's hard to tell whether, some people are saying, is it incompetence or malevolence? It was a fashion choice, and it was a choice. But what's also interesting, and I'm going to answer the question. It said, "You really don't care. I really don't care, do you?" The answer is yes. And on June 30th, anybody who answers yes to "I really don't care, do you?" Anybody who answers yes to that question, you show up because the family separation policy will be protested hard on June 30th. Go to moveon.org. They'll tell you where in your neck of the woods you can go to protest. But we're all going. Everybody needs to go. All the decent people, nationwide demonstrations to answer her question. She says, "I really don't care. The question to us is, do you?" And the answer is, yeah. But Zara, I did not know this because Zara, Zara's one of those places where you could get like really cheap juniors clothes. So if you're a smaller size, if you're a woman size where you have boobs at all, you don't really, But if you're a junior size person, Zara is like a really good place to get, inexpensive clothing that's kind of fashion forward and stylish. And you know, when I started looking at that coat, I go, why would they even make a coat like that? Well, it turns out they've made other clothing that is extremely questionable. Apparently, Zara has been making anti-Semitic clothing for a very, very long time. Now, Zara is a Spanish company. They're headquartered in Spain, okay? And they're playing into this European, Nazi movement too. And they've been doing this for a really long time. I mean, I started looking at some of the things that went on the internet about Zara. And apparently a lot of the fashion-forward girls in our audience are very aware, and I was not, of this company. Brett, would you show something so I could describe it to people? I want to show you some of the other clothes. Okay, so this was a $78 purse that Zara put out. Now, $78 for a discount kind of that's an expensive bag. But if you notice on that bag, there are flowers, but there's also swastikas. Now, they made that bag back in 2007. 2007. And people complained about that bag, and so they discontinued it. That was 2007. Show me something else so I can tell them what it is. Okay, so this is like 2016. This is their Pepe skirt. Pepe! This is their Pepe skirt, which is a signal to the alt-right that you're a Nazi, that you're with them, that you're a white supremacist. Okay? Show me something else. This is why I play my own videos. Come on, Brett. Okay, this is a t-shirt, white is the new black. Show me something else. Oh, this is 2017. I think this was 2017. They designed these shirts for children. Okay, this was a children's shirt. No, this is 2014. Sorry. This was a shirt they designed in 2014. Now, if you are familiar with Nazi garb, okay, or the history of the Holocaust, then you know that children in concentration camps and children in Polish ghettos and German, camps were made to wear these little striped shirts with the yellow Star of David sewn on them to identify them as juvenile Jews. Zara recreated these for children in 2014. So I'm going to leave it up to you and your discretion if you're a junior-sized girl about whether or not you want to shop there. You see what I mean? And so Melania, who is a fashion goddess, has to know this. When she selected a $39 trench coat to wear on a 90-degree day in Washington, D.C., that she knew would be photographed from the back because she would have to walk up to Air Force One at Andrews Air Force Base to get on the plane to go speak to the interned children. She not only selected the jacket that says, "I really don't care," but she also selected it from Zara, which is off the beaten path for her because this is a woman who wears $795 and $1,500 shoes. So everybody's saying, well, what's the message? The message is clearly on the back of the jacket. What are you wondering what the message is? But she asked us a question. Do we care? And I say on June 30th, we answer that question with yeah. Yeah, we do. Dennis in Buffalo.
Yeah, hey Randy, I just had watched the when this whole thing started, I got this movie called Spotlight. It was in regard to the Globe newspaper back in Boston about the abuses that were going on in the Catholic Church and how widespread it was, and that they had almost, in their own minds, the Catholic Church suppressed this information they suppressed everything from the government. You couldn't go up against the Catholic Church, the cardinal, nobody. And that's what this is starting to remind me of, because it's almost like they're legalizing pedophilia. You know, I have a horrible feeling that many thousands of these children will never be found. That's why they took them, and they said, well, we don't know where they are. We think.
It is interesting. It is interesting that you have all these children being moved in the middle of the night, like that New York film clip that I showed, you know, from the investigative reporters over at New York One, which is a local channel. They saw these kids being moved in the middle of the night, like 1:45 in the morning. And it looked to me like, these pedophile rings that operate in the Philippines.
Thank you.
I mean, it really did. It looked really, really creepy. It gave me that really made me nauseous. And then you start to understand, you know, I didn't even read the child abuse stories from yesterday that had to do with sexual abuse, because that makes my skin crawl. I just read the ones where they're drugging them and the ones where they're, you know, torturing them, tying them to chairs, restraints, putting bags over their head, leaving them in these chairs strapped for 10 days at a time, putting them in solitary confinement, you know, this kind of crap. But it is interesting that these kids are just going to disappear. Well, who's going to get them? I mean, if we have no, vetting process for fostering, and if we have no vetting process for where they go, and if you can't hold these 81 companies accountable for the deaths that have occurred on their watch, and we still keep giving them this grant money without any, oversight, without any, questioning about why are kids showing up dead in your facility, or why are kids showing up raped in your facility, or why are kids showing up drugged in your facility, or why are kids showing up with scars on their body from beatings they've taken, and here's your $5 million for the next year. What do we think is happening to these kids?
I'm looking at the fact that maybe Ray Moore was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and they do support pedophilia. I mean, you got a candidate, seriously, look him up, running in Virginia as a Republican, who's pro-pedophilia.
Yeah.
He's one of these incel guys. This is a new thing, okay? White supremacists who can't get laid. They got a big beef, and they're pro-pedophilia, pro-incest, pro-white supremacy, and they're running for office. You got a Nazi in Chicago in the 3rd District in Illinois. You got this pro-pedophilia dude running in as a Republican in Virginia. You had Roy Moore in Alabama. You got Donald Trump, who says he loves that he runs these teen pageants because he could walk in and see them all naked. You've got Jeffrey Epstein, who is closely associated with Dershowitz and sex islands. I mean, the whole thing is just so sick.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Fact check.
Remember, the Democrats had supermajorities in the U.S. Senate with 60 votes and the majority in the House in 2006 and 8, and they chose not to fix this problem.
Who signed the 2008 law that guides today? Who signed it?
Barack Obama.
Wrong. 2008, it was signed by President Bush, okay? I'm not big into the politics blame game. I think that there's problems with both sides in terms of why we've been stuck with a bad system that is inhumane on many levels for many years. However, let's call the facts as they fall. Bush signed it. The 97 Flores Agreement says you can't keep juveniles more than 20 days and you got to treat them in the right conditions. It was a humane settlement that the DOJ agreed to. This isn't about the law. It's about how you choose to enforce it. Bush struggled with this. Obama struggled with this. Trump was struggling with this, but he decided to do this proxy of strength in the form of harshness, and let's arrest them all. But he wasn't ready for it, and he created a crisis, Corey. That's the truth. Will you admit that the way this was done was a mistake?
You mean implementing the law, following the law? Look, it is a mistake.
The way you did it here,
separate
will you
children.
own this was a mistake? The president had to admit it by signing this, this executive order, whatever it means or doesn't mean. Will you admit that this was a mistake? Can you own it?
I'll admit this very clearly. Nobody wants to see their children separated from their parents.
Well, then you
it is
shouldn't
a
have started
terrible
doing
thing
it.
for anybody. Right? But this is what happens when you have laws and you break the laws.
This is how you chose
don't
to
rob a
enforce
bank
that
with your
law.
children.
Don't confuse people.
Chris, what happens Chris, if you rob a bank with your children, guess what? You're
It's a
separated
felony.
from those children.
It's
That's
not a
what
misdemeanor
happens.
for crossing a border. You've shown intent to hurt people. You've shown an intent to deprive people of their property.
But
you
it's
didn't
okay.
just cross a border.
Chris,
okay?
what if you did this in a different country? If you went to any other country in the world and crossed their border illegally, would you expect to be able to stay with your children?
Germany has a much more open. You say their crime went up. The opposite is true. And their illegal entries are down 79%. Trump can't get his facts straight. He should get the feelings right.
Thank you. Oh, my God. He keeps saying, crime is off the hook in Germany because they've got this mass immigration. Illegal crossings into Germany are down 79%, and crime is like non-existent in Germany. They just lie. Corey Lewandowski was presented with a fact that when we had majorities of Democrats in 2006, 7, and 8, Democrats did comprehensive immigration reform. And a Republican president at the time, George W., signed it. Sitting here and blaming the Democrats for not doing comprehensive immigration reform is ridiculous because the House belongs to the Republicans, the Senate belongs to the Republicans, and the White House belongs to a Republican Nazi. And the Republican Party, okay, let's just say this out loud. You are not the party of family values. That ship has sailed. You took on this bull crap thing and you violated it 8 ways to Sunday. You never believed in family values. You will never be trusted again with that moniker. You've blown it, and you blew it because you chose an orange man with crazier hair than Kim Jong-un who loves autocrats and extrajudicial killings and separating babies from breastfeeding mothers. You're done. Your moral high ground was always a molehill. I always understood it. But now everybody who voted that way because they thought that you represented family first has a close-up and personal view of love the fetus, hate children. They have always loved the fetus and hated the child. And I've been saying this to you for, 20 years? You won't believe me, but now you can. You got these children huddled together with tears streaming down their faces because some of the caregivers are telling them their parents are dead. And we know this because there's seriously decent, educated people in this country, lawyers who are advocating for these children, lawyers who are youth care workers at Arizona shelters and are talking to the newspapers, and they are telling you, Natalia Cornello, she's with the Texas Human Rights Project. She said a Honduran mother whose child had been ripped away from her while she was breastfeeding inside an old warehouse in South Texas. She saw hundreds of children waiting in a series of cages. One cage had 20 children inside. In a lot of these cases, the parents have already been deported. Their children are still here, and there is no way to put these children back together with the parents. Because you had this moron, Mr. Floyd, in charge of the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, at HHS, who does not have any experience with refugees or logistics or anything in his resume that would qualify him to be in charge of keeping track of human beings. He's an anti-abortion activist is what he is. And so now you have the former director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the former the former head of ICE. He said some of these family separations will be permanent. You are creating thousands of immigrant orphans. What's going to happen? They're going to look to put them in homes. They're going to look for foster parent. And what kind of people? I don't know what the screening is going to be. This man has no experience with refugee resettlement, none whatsoever, and he's in charge of it. Do you think there's a chance that these kids are going to end up being used as labor on family farms, or being used as labor on factory farms, or being used as ways to troll the internet for the NAMBLA people? I mean, I can't even go there because that really makes me gag, okay? It just does. But this cruelty is an actual purpose. They did this for the purpose of being cruel. There is no crisis at the border. There is no threat to public safety. There isn't a surge in border crossers. It did not happen. We showed you the charts yesterday. Back in 2000, we had almost 1.5 million people cross our border. Border crossings are down to like what they were prior in 1971. I mean, we don't have a crisis at the border. We have a normal seasonal uptick is what we have. It happens every single year. And the uptick this year is lower than it was in 2000, lower than it was in 1999, lower than it was in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's lower than anything we've, so there's this crazy thing going on. And when you look at this administration, like, how did they handle? First, they denied they were doing it. Then they said, these kids are better off. Just like the slaves, you were better off being a slave because you got 3 cots in a hut. You got 3 hots in a cot, right? They're providing them entertainment, right? Some of them have video games. Some of them are getting, a medical care. And then we find out it's a cocktail of 10, freaking drugs to keep them, sleeping. But they're separated from their parents. You think they care? They don't care. Listen, I told you, I know the culture in Central America. Your children are your world. They are everything. Everything else is a second thing. Nothing comes before your children except maybe God. They are so... You can't ask somebody in any of the countries in Central America, you say, ¿Cómo estás? How are you? And they'll say, depending on what country you're in, they'll say, todo bien, gracias por Dios. They don't even, everything is thanks to God. Everything is thanks to God. When they leave you, they say blessings. These are extremely Christian people, extremely. And their children are everything. Everything. So we have cruelty, denial of cruelty. Then we have, well, they're better off. And then we have, well, they're all criminal. We have all these different explanations. But the reason why is because some of them are embarrassed or ashamed or scared to tell you that the cruelty was designed. That's why they did it. Just because Trump is a sadist. He's an authoritarian sadist. Kim in North Carolina.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Hey.
I'm just calling to let you know that I just called the Department of Health and Human Services, and the lady that answered the phone, I did not get her name, but she told me that she had no idea what was going to happen, that she was just as upset as I was about these children. She did not know if they were ever going to be, reunited.
Right.
And then she threw me to a comment line. It was the craziest thing in the world. It's like, what do you mean you don't know what's going on with these children?
Nobody does. Nobody knows what's going on with these children. And the reason they don't know is because this was done in a way that no one in this government could ever or was prepared for. The president just does things on a whim. He wakes up in the morning and he wants a pound of flesh and he goes and gets it. And it doesn't matter if they're children, and it doesn't matter if they're haggard women, and it doesn't matter if they're poor dads. It doesn't matter who he's doing it to. He just does it. And the government is never prepared for the crap he does. And so, you've got this chaos. And then he tries to pretend that he signed an executive order and it's all over. And then you're smart. You made a call to HHS. Now, another call if you're into it. Call the Office of Refugee Resettlement. That is a subdivision of HHS. They are the ones who are actually in charge of not only giving the contracts to these 81 companies that house these kids, but they are in charge of the oversight, and they're in charge of having a logistical plan to reunite. And I bet you they can't tell you.
I bet you they can't either.
Nope.
I told that lady, I said, I'm going to tell you what, the people of this country are not, we are relentless people. We are relentless. And until we find every single one of these children, we will not rest.
Thank God for you.
Thank God for you, Randy. You stayed stay on course, girls. Stay on course.
We're doing this, Kim. This is the hopeful note that, I want to go out on a Friday. We are doing this. Lawyers are doing this. Ordinary folks like you that are making these calls are doing this. The Congress, the Democrats in Congress are doing this. The journalists are doing this. The photographers are doing this.
That's right.
We are doing this. We are not going to let this country slip into fascism, Nazism, and some sadistic, cruel culture of lying and cheating and stealing and taking people's children away from them. It's not going to happen here.
No, it is not. It is not. We are relentless. We are relentless. I told them to be ready for June 30th.
Yes.
There's going to be millions of people hitting the streets all over this country.
I tell you, the Women's March was pretty awesome, but this is going to be even bigger because this is going to involve people everyone who cares about kids, not just, women's issues and not just the misogyny that, Donald Trump campaigned with, the grabbing of the P word and all that. This is parents across this country. This is every righteous, decent person. These are people who believe that, you may love the fetus, but we love the child more.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you,
Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Love you. Wayne in Richmond, Virginia.
Hey, Randy, how you doing? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I know I came in towards the end of the show, but I just wanted to share something with you and the listeners. I'm not a Trump supporter or a fan by any means. However, the one thing that he has done for me, and I'll say this pretty much, the one thing that he has done for me is motivate me to want to pursue a career in politics. Right now, thank you for that. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm taking online classes to receive a Bachelor's of Arts degree in political science and government.
Awesome.
And then once my educational part is done, that's when I'm going to run for office. I'm going to start in my state. I'm still trying to decide if I want to go through the House of Delegates or the Senate. But the ultimate goal for me is a seat in Congress. So Trump motivated me to take that course right there.
Well, when you start your campaign, you call me.
Oh, I will.
So we could get the word out and we could do a little fundraising for you.
Oh, I can. I love your show, and I'm pretty much going to be listening, going forward like I have been. But, yeah, I'm definitely going to give you a call once I take that next step.
You do it. You go for it. You can do it. You can do it. I have been talking to people over the years who have told me their plans, and so many of them have done what they said they're going to do, and I can't be prouder. When you call and tell me, I told you, 5 years ago that I was going to go to school, and I graduated, and now I got my law degree. I mean, I just love it. And you just do it. You just do it, do it, do it.
Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. It's not that hard. Listen, I finally got an honorary law degree, and if they'll give me one, they'll, anybody can get one. But listen, I'll tell you, there's a special place in hell for these Republicans. Remember, let's not forget some of the things that have been said this week, okay? Ann Coulter called these children child actors. Don't forget this. Laura Ingraham said that they were going to camp. Okay? Newspapers actually printed that, and she read them, and that was a San Diego newspaper she was quoting. These people are without shame. These are people who are dead inside. It's literally dead inside. There is no joy in their world. There is no there's no shame. If there's no shame, there's no guilt. There's no joy. They have no feelings. They're dead inside, literally dead inside. If you could sit there and say the crap that like Alex Jones says, Ann Coulter probably realizes he can sell books. And so she's gone down to the level of their child actors. Come on, give me a break, people. We're better. Like this week, we were not better than that, but we are better than this. All right, Ryan in Seattle, you got like 30 seconds.
Oh.
What did you want to ask?
Well, I just wanted to state that when making a moral argument against immoral people, we should just rely on the numbers and understand that Americans aren't living forever. 900,000 Americans die each year. We have the room and the resources. We can reinvent immigration and sell that plan.
That's beautiful. And this is sad, but middle-aged white people are not living very long because of the abject poverty and the drugs, the opioids. And so it does look like by 2045, they will be a minority in this country. You should understand that only because it's motivating them. Their own demise. It motivates them. But they won't be around. So just remember, I don't give a damn what you want if you're a Trump supporter. I care about what you need. I know you need rehab. I know you need more money. I know you need a living wage. And I care about that. But I don't care what you want right now because you're dead inside. I want you to come alive. I want you to feel that you're part of something bigger than you, better than your current circumstance. And then we can actually make that happen. That's what this whole thing is about. Making it better for the next 50 years. Buy a stinking podcast.